Hello, everyone. As I was coming up with this week's topic, one thing that was going through my mind, as this is an election week in the United States, was something that you don't see much of anymore, and that's photojournalism. Now, it shares a lot of things in common with event photography, in that you're taking pictures of something happening, not something you're staging. And the reason I say staging is in the beginning, this will let you guys know how old I am. Photojournalism allowed people to see what was happening in other parts of the world. It put a human face on the stories. We have some of that today, for example, in Gaza. But those were things that used to be seen much more. When was the last time you saw something from Gaza that wasn't on social media, that actually came from a media source? It used to be we had local newspapers. And those local newspapers would have photojournalists who weren't just capturing snapshots of an event, but actually trying to get into what was going on. Those perp walk photographs, for example, used to appear in newspapers with somebody being arrested and that showing up on the paper, for good or ill. Again, if somebody got arrested, it doesn't mean they did it and they get the benefit of the doubt. But we went from just capturing these images to putting a story to it. Not necessarily the story that should be with it, but the story they wanted to portray. So photojournalism went from showing the truth of what was going on to being subservient to a story that they wanted to tell. Some photojournalism is hard to cast it in another light. For example, the protester being run over by a tank in Tiananmen Square. Other things, much easier. That perp walk photograph, showing the person being arrested, but not adding in the shading of they've been arrested, but they aren't guilty yet until a jury says they are. And now, like I said, you look at the photography that's taken. It shows up on local newspapers. And it seems to be very light stuff. Just something to allow the paper to say we have photographs. Photojournalism seems to have moved what's left of it onto social media. And yet, even with the ubiquity of cell phones, there are still so many stories out there that aren't told. There was a photo study done, I believe it was a photographer in Mexico, I don't remember his name, that was shooting pictures of people who'd been murdered. There are others in the United States who have captured the real humanity behind homelessness. the lack of stability that goes along with that, and how that impacts the people who are homeless. It allowed an human face that could not be ignored to be shown so that people could understand the plight, because they weren't experiencing it themselves. We don't experience what's going on in Gaza except through reports and photographs. In that way, in the United States, and this may apply to other countries, but I don't live in other countries, there is a very insular nature to our news. Something that makes us less aware of what's going on, less empathetic because we don't know what's going on to the plight of other people. And as I said, it mirrors when you take photographs for an event, especially something like a sporting event, where there is no constraints to what's going to happen. The only barrier you might have is where it's going to occur. For example, a football game is going to occur in the football stadium. The baseball game is going to occur in the baseball stadium. When you're seeing reenactors, a lot of that is choreographed to a certain extent and has to be for everybody's safety. So that type of event photography is not quite the same. But sports photography seems to be one of the few true photojournalistic endeavors that I see widely publicized. One of the few things that actually shows up in newspapers or that shows up on news broadcasts. Now, I'm biased. I don't typically watch the news, so I see the newspaper and I see social media, so I see some of that out there, but I don't see anything like what there used to be published in papers, which I find curious in that we are such a visual people. And yet, rather than showing what's going on, we're watching talking heads on TV going on about whatever it is. Why aren't we seeing what's going on? The military has tons of drones that take pictures of everything everywhere, but do the press? Doesn't seem to be. Doesn't seem that the press even pays photographers like they used to. I remember seeing ads saying, hey, send in your photograph and maybe we'll use it. For what? The paper makes money on your photograph and you get recognized because your name's on the photograph? Be honest, how many out there actually look at a standard photograph that's in a newspaper or anything else and can tell me who took that picture? Or even look to see who did take that picture? It's just a gimmick to allow them to not hire photojournalists. And again, a photojournalist is not a photographer. I worked for the college paper. And even then, the paper's goal was to just take these traditional snapshot pictures of somebody that they were interviewing or somebody they were doing a story about. The National Guard, and it was never clear who invited them, showed up on campus one day. They flew a helicopter in and landed it on campus. And according to the campus administration, they hadn't invited them. They didn't know how they'd gotten there, which to me is never a good response from a college administration. But they had a radio truck. They flew in a helicopter. They had a couple of pieces of equipment that they brought. The paper ran a story about it without any of the pictures. And I know because I gave them several pictures. Again, I was working for the newspaper. I had my camera with me, and I happened to be arriving at the college campus when the damn helicopter landed. So I got pictures of the helicopter and the radio truck and everything else, and they just freaked out about having those pictures. They just wanted to tell a story about the National Guard showing up, sans any kind of comment from the college administration about it, but not publish the first-hand view of what was going on. Now, I understand that when it comes to printing things, there is a cost associated with everything, and pictures take up more space than text. But I don't understand why photojournalism has gone away, other than the fact that it seems that journalism itself has gone away. Everything seems to be a fluff piece. Very few times are there any real questions asked during interviews and things, and the stories are very light. There doesn't seem to be much in them. Just reporting what somebody said and not really getting into anything behind it. And maybe that's what's happened to photojournalism as well. But what I would like to encourage everybody is, whether you're using a camera or you're using your phone, if you see something out there that's noteworthy, something that should be shared with other people, social media is available. Make sure you get the pictures. If you can get some story to go with it, by all means, without obviously putting yourself at risk or getting in the way of any personnel doing their job. But put them out there. Pictures can make a difference. How many times have people been pulled over by the police or been in a bad situation, like a road rage situation, where having that video, having those photographs has mattered? I think we take for granted that somebody's always going to do this, when that somebody may just be us. Something for you guys to think of this week, and I will talk to you all next week.